Hello everyone! In this video, I'll be coloring and explaining about the color process of this Xena commission. As you see, I'm starting with skin tones first, using Winsor & Newton watercolors. I'm using a mixture of brown and orange, and I'm keeping it very simple, and I'm letting it dry a little bit before I go back and add more. While her skin tones get dry, I fill in the rest of her details with flat colors, using mainly brown and purple for now. I'm using my favorite brush, Rachlin number 4. It has a very sharp edge and therefore it's very good for fine and small details. Still using mainly brown for all the details, while I'm actually using a reference photo that I found in Google of Xena herself, and also I'm using a reference of myself for shadows, lights, and anatomy. There are so many details in her outfit. It was a little bit tricky to get them all done, but also very satisfying in a way. I also noticed that I often start with dark colors first, then moving on to light colors. It is not a rule, and a lot of other artists start the opposite way, so you can actually do whatever fits you the most. Finally filling in the rest of the outfit with a really flat layer, and it kind of unifies all the brown layers that I added before. Now going on to the rest of the smallest details before starting with background. For the background, I'm using a lot more water than on the figure itself. I want the colors to be very fluent, and I want the colors also to be filled in so there won't be any white spots. While the background gets dry, I'm using copic markers to render her skin tones and her outfit. Make sure that if you do this method of coloring, that you let the watercolors dry first. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to use copic markers on a wet surface. The color palette that I chose was mainly blue and orange. Blue for the background and the dark shadows, and orange and brown for her outfit and the explosion that you see near her legs. For this effect of dabbing the background, I've used cotton that is soaked with copic markers refills. After planning ahead which background I'm going to draw, I'm using a reference photo that I found in Google, just a random one, of a forest and a mountain. For the background, I'm using a lot of purples, blues, And for the trees, a little bit also of brown shades and greens. The mountain has a blue shade because it's in the far background, and there's an atmosphere on Earth that makes a lot of things look bluer when they're far away. Now I'm using a little bit of acrylic for highlights. It's mixed up with yellow. I chose yellow as a reflecting light from the explosion. Slowly but surely, I finally got to the highlights part, which is my favorite. Using a very opaque layer of white for the highlights. It's called a rim light, and I love to use it and do it because it gives a lot of contrast to the figure from the background. In other words, it makes it pop more. A little bit of acrylic highlights on her face as well. The face is also the focus point of this piece, so I'm using a very opaque layer of white, and with her dark hair surrounding her face, it has the most contrast. After letting the acrylic part dry, I'm using colored pencils as a final rendering of this piece. Using Caran d'Ache watercolor pencils, which are my favorite pencils because I can also smudge the color a little bit either with water or sometimes with copic markers. The paper that I'm using is Canson 300 grams cold press, so it has a lot of texture, and the white pencil kind of unifies all the layers that I've added so far. It's also important to mention that you should keep the skin tone look very smooth, especially if it's a woman that you're drawing. I'm darkening her shadows a little bit more, using mainly a brown pencil. Her outfit is made of leather, and since it's a surface that is also reflecting light, I'm adding a highlight on it from the explosion and the environment. In the colored pencils, I mainly used brown shades, purple shades, white, yellow, and a little bit of turquoise, mainly for her eyes, I think. Final layer is splattering using white acrylic. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find this video enjoyable.